Oh, hello everyone. It's Susie Crew from Esoteric Trading Solutions. I hope you're all well. I hope you're treating each other well and treating your family well, yourself well, and also family and friends. Life is very short, and please make sure you always do what you want to do because it is really, really short. And I know this market's been quite bad lately. It's been falling. I've been losing money like everyone else, but I do think it's probably going to bounce from here. And I just want to go through some of the points about why the cryptocurrency market has been falling and why I think, going forward, for me, this is a great buy. And I do think that, it can probably go higher than this from here for me. So you people have to do your own analysis in terms of, what you'd like to do with your own buying. But from my perspective, I think this is a buy, and but I will go through some of the reasons why I think it's been coming down. I mean, obviously there's a myriad of reasons why the cryptocurrency market's been falling, but I'll just go through the main reasons. One of the reasons was Tether. Another reason, obviously, was regulation, the worry about regulation, but also a lot of scams, and also obviously cryptocurrency being stolen and the like, and just a lot of negativity in terms of crypto market land. But we will go through this and just look at the overall. The Tether story basically is an important one because some of the exchanges have US Tether and some of them don't. And US Tether is not actually US dollars. It's not real US dollars that have been issued by the US government. They're basically almost like a US dollar cryptocurrency, if you want to call it that, and they're not actually backed by the US dollars, which means they don't have the credit rating of the US dollars. And also they're actually issued by a company called Tether Limited, which is basically governed by the laws of British Virgin Islands, and essentially, basically is incorporated in Hong Kong, but doesn't have any credit rating per se. Now, the Tether that's been actually issued in the market is 2.2 billion, and there is a concern that this Tether is being used to actually raise the price of Bitcoin and every other altcoin out there by using this Tether. And the reality is the Commodities Futures Trading Commission has basically subpoenaed Bitfinex, who also offers Tether, US dollar Tether, to prove they have 2.2 or they have exactly the same equivalent US dollars backing the US Tether. So I guess I want to say that US Tether and US dollars are not the same thing. US dollars are physically issued by the US government, which has a AAA rating. So you actually have a credit rating from the US government, a AAA rating, and they own that issue or that currency. So it is legal tender, whereas US dollar Tether is basically you've effectively got a credit rating against this company here, Tether Limited, which is not doesn't have a credit rating and is governed by the laws of British Virgin Columbia, which is not governed by the US dollars. So Tether and US dollars are not the same thing, and I think that's really important, and people need to understand that. Also, the Commodity Futures Trading Commission and the SEC, the Security Exchange Commission, are concerned that the US dollar Tether has been used to manipulate markets and to increase the volume, the pricing of Bitcoin as well as the alt currencies, which is not a good story. So they're really subpoenaing Bitfinex to see if they've actually got the US dollars, the real US dollars, backing the US Tether. Now, if they don't, this could be a real crisis in itself, and I suspect that this has actually been behind the falling of the market, particularly a lot of the altcoins and Bitcoin falling. But you need to also look at it in terms of different exchanges. Some exchanges will have Tether and some won't. Now, the thing is, if they do have Tether, what I can see happening, and I've read a couple of stories about this, people will try to obviously get out of Tether, buy altcoin, and then obviously move that altcoin or Bitcoin to another exchange and then sell it. So it's not great for the exchanges that hold US dollar tether if they don't have the US dollar currency backing it. And I think that's a problem, and it has been raised in the past as well, so that's not a good story. So look out for that story, because I don't think it's going to go away, particularly if the Commodities Futures Trading Commission has subpoenaed Bitfinex. It might subpoena a few other people, but also the Security Exchange Commission in the US, which is a very, very strong regulatory board for the stock exchange and the fixed interest and money markets and the like. They're really coming down heavy on regulation for the cryptocurrency market in the US. And that's also been another problem in itself in terms of regulation for the US cryptocurrency market. You know, US residents, for example, can't invest in ICOs and that sort of thing because, you know, because of the documentation for ICOs, which is very bad compared to IPOs, initial public offerings for equities, and bond, you know, documentation, which is often prospectuses and bond mandates and that sort of thing in terms of reference. So they feel this tether story, the CEO of Bitfinex is too close or involved with, you know, they feel there's some rumour that he's manipulating prices possibly and using tether. And, you know, the reality is if there's not 2.2 billion of real US dollars backing this tether, you've got a real problem here, counterparty risk, you know, a credit risk particularly, because obviously the credit risk of Tether Limited is not going to be a AAA like the US government. So definitely look at this, and it could really, you know, I think it has had a big effect on pricing, and it hasn't been a great story in that sense. If we look at other reasons why this market's gone down, there's no doubt about it. Sorry if I've misspelled that. I'm not a great speller. I didn't do a spell check on this. B-A-N-N, whatever. Regulations and banning. Every country in the world has a different story in terms of regulations. Some people are very pro cryptocurrency and some people are very against cryptocurrency. And it's not surprising that you're getting a lot of argy-bargy between what country's pro and what country's not. You know, there was a story out that South Korea was going to ban cryptocurrencies just like China. China came out and put pressure on the miners that they were using too much electricity. So the miners had to go, you know, to other countries to actually mine Bitcoin and the like, because electricity is actually rising in China, but also they were pressuring the miners what cheap electricity they've been using within the Chinese region. So there's pressure on that. But also the regulatory information that came out of India, Indian finance manager said basically that, I'm just going to have some water, that they were looking to eliminate cryptocurrency, and they were concerned about it being used for illegal or illegitimate transactions. It did seem when they came out with this statement that they were going to stop cryptocurrency, so the market didn't like that particularly, and also the South Korean thing, but they were all rumours and they weren't quite right. India has retracted that statement and basically said, look, yeah, we're just concerned that it's not going to be used for proper purposes and that it could be used for illegal purposes. Also, the Japanese FSA, which is the Financial Security Association, it's a bit like the FSA in England, or here APRA, the Australian Prudential Regulatory Authority, which regulates the banks. The FSA does the same thing in Japan, Financial Securities Association. They do all the regulatory controlling compliance, make sure the exchanges are up on compliance with their paperwork, know your client and all that sort of thing. They do it for the bond market, the currency market, and the exchange market. They're obviously now doing it for the crypto market. So they said they've announced that they were going to visit 32 crypto exchanges for compliance. Some of these crypto exchanges, at least 16 of them aren't licensed, but also they're concerned about the paperwork that's being done, but also, whether there's, whether there's been scams or whether there's essentially been, manipulation, or also whether, crypto's gone missing, which we do know crypto has gone missing. One of the large exchanges lost, 530 million of NEM, which was concerning. But also the USA Security Exchange Commission is really coming down on crypto exchanges, and the ICO issuance, and no resident in the USA can actually invest in ICOs. And also we heard the South Korean potentially banning crypto, but then obviously no. But then on the other side of that, you've got governments like Russia, Venezuela, Lithuania, Canada, and Latin America, all very pro cryptocurrencies. And also, the Brisbane airport here, for example, I'm not in Brisbane, but they're now accepting some cryptocurrencies. So there's been a lot of stuff come out of recent times that has really put a lot of uncertainty in investors and traders' minds, and that's another reason why this market obviously has been going down. Not only that, we've seen a lot of malicious attacks, and we've seen stuff coming out from the banks that they won't allow people to use Bitcoin credit cards to fund Bitcoin accounts. JP Morgan, Chase, Bank of America have just come out with that. But also we've also seen the Australian banks here not allowing people to use accounts to fund their Bitcoin accounts, or even for the money to come back and for them to take profit, which has been pretty annoying. Also there's been a lot of malicious attacks, and one of them, as I mentioned before, was CoinCheck. They lost 526 million or whatever, which was NEM coins. But there's been so many DOS attacks on the exchange, and detected malware for mining different coins, which affected 500,000 computers. Now, I just want to say malware, malicious attacks are rising as crypto has been rising. Malicious attacks are rising all the way, and please be careful, because even if you go into a YouTube or Facebook or a link to download something, some of these scammers are actually putting almost, they're so clever, they write little development, terminology, computer development technology speak, and they'll link something to a YouTube or a Twitter or whatever. It'll be almost like a Trojan horse. You click on it, and then that clicks onto your computer, and that writing computer speak will click onto your computer and allow them to mine coins using your computer grunt, and that means using your electricity as well as your computer grunt. There's been wallet problems with ADA and Ethereum. There's been a problem I read the other day where a fellow had bought a used wallet from someone else, put all these coins on there, and the other person that he bought the wallet from still had access to that wallet. And basically, as soon as this fellow put his coins on there, the other guy that sold it to him basically transferred all his coins across to himself, and this guy lost all his coins. Apparently there's something now wrong with Ledger NanoS. There's been an issue there, something to do with when you do a transfer. They've worked out, because you have to use the internet to download, obviously the program. Some of the computer boffins out there that are trying to scam things have worked out how to do that as well. So there is a story about that. And look, there's been many ICO scams. There was something called a pawn coin, which I wouldn't invest in just for technical reasons, ethical reasons. And that was, apparently the person that came out about that had an incorrect, I've actually got to go to work soon, had an incorrect, that completely different name, and they scammed people on that coin, which is pretty bad, I've got to say, and walked around away with the proceeds. I just want to go into this wallet thing, this Ledger NanoS wallet thing, because it is a concern. This is supposed to be the safest way that you can actually store your crypto, and yet a story's just come out today, which is Sunday, and it's a bit of a worry about how they're getting access to people's crypto on this Ledger NanoS. And I've got two Ledger NanoS's, one for my investment portfolio and one for my trading portfolio. So I just want to look into this story. I'll just pull it up. Just bear with me for a minute. I'm just trying to find that story, but I'm unable to in my database. But I do remember the story being on Bitfinex, on Bitcoin News, and that story was on there. So have a look at that story. It was on Bitcoin News, talking about the Ledger NanoS and how some person's getting access somehow. I need to have a look at that too, but I will come back to you on that, because that is a bit concerning. Anyway, please keep well. look after yourselves, and please be kind to yourselves and everyone else in your life. Life is short, and I hope you're all well. Thank you.